Right. Hello, everybody. Greetings. This is Mika Janhunen here from FICS, so the World Sports Chiropractic Federation. And we have a special thing we're doing now. So this is basically our sports chiro chats we're doing. I think we might have to come up with a better, more selling name for that. But, for the time being, we'll work with that. So I'm currently the Finance Commission Chair, and we just thought about it for a little while and came up with this idea of doing these little chats to talk about sports chiropractic and help people kind of keep their sanity and get over this period of isolation. And today I'm joined with Dan Morgan. There you are.
Hi.
Handsome as ever. Hair all
Yeah,
sorted.
try. Yeah, it was up early doing this, so it took a bit of effort actually. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Well, Dan's clinical expertise is phenomenal, and it's only rivaled by his attention to hair care. So we'll go from there.
What can I say?
No, absolutely right, man. Absolutely right. So yeah. Well, tell you what. Why don't you introduce yourself briefly? Go through a bit of a resume and what kind of things you got yourself into and interested in over the years, and we shall kick off from there.
Yeah. So I basically graduated in 2014 from the Welsh Institute of Chiropractic in obviously South Wales. Since then, my emphasis has obviously been on sports chiropractic and getting involved in sports.
Absolutely.
And it was always my key interest, and it's one of the things that I've always wanted to be involved in. And you go through times where you think, it's not going to happen, particularly at an elite level, and it is always difficult to get into those kind of into those elite brackets. But finally there now this last 12 months, which is really good. I'm currently practicing in South Wales in Ptolba at Beaches Chiropractic. I work with the BCA with the student and new graduates, and I also work with the Royal College as well, so do a little bit of work there. But the majority of my sporting experience has been in ranging from amateur rugby to elite rugby, where I'm currently still working now, which is an absolute joy to behold. Obviously, we've in a lockdown at the moment, so we're not doing so much there. All the boys are currently in self-isolation for a period of time, so that's difficult. We've done little bits of natural strongman as well, which is amazing. Masters athletics with Fiona Jacobs in the UK. And done also, which is a niche one, is European Life-Saving Championships, which is
no way.
Yeah, really,
so what
really
does that
good.
involve? That sounds interesting.
So there's multitude of events really. There's beach events, which is sprint events, and there's swim events, and it's really interesting. Like they've got flags, which is essentially shuttle runs, but on sand, on soft sand, and
wow,
they present with such a unique way. The swimmers have got hypermobility in their C-spine. The runners' hamstrings and quad bulk is ridiculous because they've got to propel themselves forward on really unsteady ground. So they're a really unique athlete, actually. But it was a really, really good couple of weeks. We were very fortunate that the European Life-Saving Championships are in our hometown because we've got a lovely beach just down the road. And so we were very fortunate that it was being held there. And we got involved, and we actually got some students involved as well. And it was a really nice experience, that one. So
cool.
It was really, really niche, but yeah, good.
No, it sounds amazing. And I mean, it sounds like a pretty grueling sport as it goes. At first I thought it was going to be like people being chucked in front of buses and that, so you can do the whole life-saving thing.
CPR and that, but no.
Exactly. But maybe not quite that.
It's sea surf basically, life-saving, but amazing. We've actually had a few patients, obviously they've come to the clinic as a result of that, and we were treating basically we weren't a part of Team GB, they had their own athletes, but we were there as a entity for nations that didn't have their own medical care. So we were providing our own treatment and treatment to everybody. There was the unity amongst the nations was superb. It was just a generally good couple of weeks to be involved with. And
wow, yeah. No, that sounds very much same as like, you know, every time I've been involved with FICS games that we organize, going into World Sports Games or whatnot, CSIT games, those kind of things. It's such a rewarding place to be in. Even if it's a bit of a labor camp, you turn up at crack of dawn at your venue, and you probably only crawl home out to your hotel sort of at dusk, you know, if that, if you're lucky. Then you grab some dinner, have a little chat with your mates, maybe a cheeky pint, and then you go to bed just to do it over again next day.
Yeah, exactly.
But
we were
it's
exactly
fun,
the same.
though.
It really is, and we were exactly the same with the Masters in Torren. And you're up early, and I'm not brilliant in the mornings anyway, but we're up early. We walk into the stadium where an indoor stadium where the athletics were taking place, and we were specifically on that event. We were specifically for Team GB, but nonetheless, you do build such a rapport with the athletes, and they are dependent on you as well, which is just, it's great, and they ask you for your advice and what you would do, and in times, that you are literally patching people up just to get them going. But that acute care is vital for these athletes at this point as well. So,
and I mean, that's what sports chiros, that's what we excel in, is getting people from limping into your treatment room or being carried and dumped on your bench, to actually then go in and finishing their event in 10 minutes. They got to get back out there and finish their event. So,
I agree.
Now, many of those experiences myself, and the gratitude is phenomenal, right? Some of them, a couple of times I've been in these games, I don't necessarily, my Portuguese is very bad. I don't really speak Arabic, to mention very, very halting Spanish here and there, like 3 words, and French to kind
better than me. I don't even speak English properly.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up, but fine. So, but the funny thing is, right, you still get that sense of gratitude. They don't even have to speak. You just see it emanating from these athletes, and you made a difference. They know you made a difference. And I mean, come on, man, what else matters really in that situation?
The nicest thing is when you get like an athlete that has made a PB, for example, and they come up to you and they're like, oh yeah, I PB'd, and you share that success with them. And
that's right.
They've, even when they've won medals in certain cases, they're like, oh look, this is partly yours, and you're like, you did all the work, but I'll take it.
I'll take the accolade. Put a quick Google review for us. That's great.
Exactly. Yeah. But what about yourself? Like, you need to. I've explained my experiences. So, what's your experiences and your background?
Well, do you know what? I'm from Finland originally, and for us, I played team sport, football, ice hockey. That was kind of the done thing, which was what I kind of wanted to actually become. I wanted to be a pro ice hockey player. Whether I ever was good enough or talented enough, I mean, that's a different story. But the point is, the decision was made for me in a way. I blew up my shoulders playing ice hockey pretty badly, which then prompted me to become a chiropractor in the end. And come to the UK and all of that to study. Got stuck here in the UK, so I haven't gone back. My wife is from Malaysia, so we're a bit of an international squad here. Holding fort here in just west side of London, that kind of thing. But so I got into golf in university. Did my dissertation on golf and how to use certain exercises to help the golfers actually perform better. And that was a screaming success. That was, it really worked. From there, I was early in practice. I qualified in 2007. So I was treating a lot of golfers, mainly amateurs at the time. Went through a bit of a twist and a turn, then got myself into triathlon, which is a funny story, but maybe for another day. But I would say I got bullied into doing triathlon, really, in all honesty. Okay. A bunch of patients I was treating at the time, they're all Ironman athletes and that, and they all of a sudden they ganged up on me and said, right, okay, we're not going to come and see you anymore unless you join us.
Come to see us, yeah.
So there I was, right, okay, I need to get myself a bike. I need to find myself an event, which was 2 months down the line. And the one thing I didn't really kind of think my way through was the fact that I was a really bad swimmer.
Oh,
So,
right.
okay, so it wasn't only a sprint distance event. It wasn't that bad. But I remember the first time I jumped in a pool to kind of try and swim with any kind of, thought. It was a mad scramble for the first length of the pool, 25 meters. And then I was holding on for my dear life there for like 10 minutes, just trying to catch my breath. The second thing I didn't really think my way through was the fact that the race was end of September in the UK.
Yep.
The water temperature was 12 degrees. Which wasn't pleasant, let's put it that way. But once I survived the swim, breaststroke my way through it, and then got on a bike and run, and I was good, and I've been hooked ever since. But yeah, so I treat a lot of triathletes these days, and that's really good fun. And we've done a lot of work with triathletes in terms of performance enhancement, injury prevention, that kind of thing, and that's really good.
Yep.
I had my little stint with the rugby club locally, so that was quite fun also. Again, rugby lads are rugby lads. There's some guys, and humor is, should we say, robust at times?
Very. They're an amazing bunch. The lot that I work in, both at amateur and elite level, amazing group of people, and the sense of community amongst rugby boys is second to none. I've never experienced anything like it. So. Yeah, they're a special bunch. I do like the rugby boys. They give you a good bit of banter as well. So, well worth it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And they're just the sheer willingness to accept defeat, isn't it? Or injury. Yeah. I remember one time I was doing a bit of pitch side stuff with the guys there, and so one guy gets a pretty bad stinger. So a bit of a neck, shoulder separation injury, that kind of thing, and his arm went completely floppy. So in the end, it took me and 2 physios to physically restrain him. He was trying to get back on the pitch, and he just kept telling me, come on, just do your clicky thing, do the clicky thing you do with my neck, I'll be fine. Mike, you can't feel your arm.
Yeah.
But he was absolutely adamant that he would be fine, right? Yeah. But I suppose there are limits, isn't it?
Of course, absolutely. But they're a special bunch. They really are, and they're heart of gold, and they will put their bodies anywhere. And they are, for the lack of a better word, they're broken in most senses. But it's about fine tuning those. And again, they're a very, very special athlete. The strength, the power that some of them possess, and these are, they're the big guys. Even at amateur level, they're big guys. So yeah, it's an interesting one, rugby. They are the nicest bloke in the world, and then they cross the white line and they'll do anything to get that ball. So they're really, really interesting. Really interesting.
Absolutely right.
Breed. Yeah. So
but I mean, when you look at the sort of spectrum, should we call it, of athletes, I mean, you and me cover as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the width and breadth of humanity really that is presented, and human movement and human ability, I suppose, is, it's all there.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's ranges which, you're going to get degrees of that between individuals in normal population, which is no different to what you get in an athletic population. But again, when you talk about the differences from the life-saving, for example, compared to the rugby boys, their necks, they need to be stable. They need to be stable because if they're going into a scrum and there's going to be, a collapse or a maul, their necks are going to be compromised. Whereas in the swimming, they need that mobility to be able to get the extension, to be able to get an effective breathing process.
That's right.
So, but equally, the treatment is tailored based on their movement and their quality of movement. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's, I suppose that's what it boils down to, is the old-fashioned chicken and the egg question. Which came first? Was it the movement restriction or aberrant movement? Did that precede the injury, or did the injury precede the aberrant movement? I mean, it's one of those things you never know, really. But
absolutely.
At the end of the day, you have to treat both, isn't it? You have to address the aberrant movement always.
Yeah, 100%. I think that one of the things that we certainly looked at so I did some research just after graduation, really, with the University of South Wales and Professor Pete McCarthy at USW, which is WEOC, essentially.
Yeah.
And we did some research there, and we were looking at, this was with elite football, actually, in academies within soccer. Elite soccer, elite football. And we were looking at identifying whether or not there's any precursors for injury. So very much along the lines of Cook's SFMA and FMS kind of stuff. But we were trying to record that and then go, okay, can we come up with a positive test criteria and then reassess or have a look at how many of these athletes have got injured in the next 5 months? And we found that there was a positive correlation with both restricted passive and active range of motion, and then non-contact injuries being achieved within that 5-month bracket, which is quite interesting. When you look at the dysfunctions and quantifying dysfunctions, something that we didn't take into consideration is whether or not hypermobility should be classed as a dysfunction, which is really interesting thought, because you could say a dysfunction
movement, isn't it?
Yes, but is that because it's excessive movement, does it necessarily mean that it's functioning properly? You'd argue that it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the distinction here is, is it controlled? Is it there for mobility, or I suppose that's the difference between mobility and hypermobility. So
yes.
You have athletes, gymnasts who are extremely mobile and would be classified as hypermobile with, I suppose, amongst any other population or against any other population, but amongst themselves,
but the control
normal.
Yeah, and that's what we actually found. Was one of the boys there had a background in ballet, believe it or not, and
not surprising.
His range of motion, for a footballer, I thought that was quite interesting. But he was one of the most robust athletes that they've come across in that club, because his range of motion was so excessive, but he had fantastic
it's the controlled range of motion, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
And it's what we were kind of looking at is, just because they maybe have a restriction or, a dysfunction, because hypermobility could technically be classed as a dysfunction if you look at it beyond normal, technically. It's the control that's important, and that's one of the key things that we took away from that, was the control beyond that range is along that range is essential, and particularly for injury prevention work anyway.
No, absolutely.
So it's quite interesting.
I treat also, both of my daughters, they've been into the gymnastics now for a little while. Okay. So they're 9 and 6 now, my girls, and they've been going to the local gymnastics club where obviously they have loads of world champion gymnasts, even acro gymnastics, that is, not your pommel horse and that, but acro gymnastics. And they do a Christmas presentation every year. So we go and watch it, and I watch these kids, and they're just these absolute specimens of athletes. And I was thinking about it a couple of years ago. I was sat there in the bleachers, and I was thinking, what? You take any athlete from any sport and try and make them do what these guys are doing.
No chance.
They will break on the spot.
Yeah, no way.
But then again, you take these acro gymnasts and you give them a couple of weeks of sort of sport-specific training, and they'll be fine. Yeah,
because their range, it's their physiological range. It's they've got such control over that movement. It would probably be detrimental to their range, but because it's like anything, isn't it? You learn what you do. If you try if you try and break that barrier, then ultimately you if you put enough time and effort into it, you will achieve that. But it's amazing how, I think the key one, I don't know if you saw the video circulating a few months ago, but there was an athlete who was an American footballer, and there was a bodybuilder, huge bloke, who's obviously been training, isolated muscle groups within the gym. And there was an American footballer, and they asked them to do a 40-meter sprint. And within the first 20, 30 meters, I think that bodybuilder pulled their hamstring, because they are not used. They're not used to getting that eccentric load to there.
That's
not
right.
at that rate. So it's the rate of movement and the rate of load that they're just not used to. And although
That's
they
right.
look like a specimen, they're not used to that range. And that's the key thing, isn't it? Is that you've got to really vary your movement. And if you vary that movement, that's what creates robust athletes.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, having that resiliency and the robustness across the board. I mean, one thing I always talk to when I do talks for sports clubs and whatnot, I always talk about the athletic diamond, where you have, if you just happen to be very lucky and you're digging around in your garden and you come across this massive old lump of a diamond in your flower bed, hypothetical situation, I'll give you that. But, in case you did, and you thought, right, okay, so it's a killer diamond. I'm going to be filthy rich. So what you start doing is you just start polishing it. So what happens, you get one facet done really nicely, right? So it's all gleaming and sparkling and sharp edge, on either side, and it just looks right the part. But the rest of the diamond you just left. Okay, so it's going to be a pretty rubbish diamond still. Let's put it that way. Won't fetch you that much money. But the point is, if you actually go through the pains of honing all the different facets, so the whole thing is basically a gleaming, sparkling thing of very expensive beauty. All of a sudden, you got yourself a beautiful diamond that will be extremely valuable. Yeah. So, I mean, how that boils down to then athletics and athleticism, perhaps, is that every facet of those diamonds facets a different attribute. So whether it's your power, like in case of your powerlifter who limped after 30 yards of sprinting, or whether it is indeed a gymnast who is super mobile, then you have agility, coordination, flexibility. I suppose, you got your endurance side of things, aerobic endurance, anaerobic endurance, you name it. There's so many different facets and attributes that we can spend a whole day throwing those out if we want.
Yeah, and I think that it's essential as well when you're looking at treating these people that you take that into consideration. I think that's, not one size fits all.
That's right.
And that's really important, is that your athlete, their demands, and the sport. And
that's right.
If you can gather the information, like, believe it or not, for a Welsh boy, football was my game. And when I was working in rugby, I had to watch a lot of rugby to understand the demands that each position was being placed under.
But that wasn't really a hardship, was it?
No, absolutely not. I could think of worse things to do. But you had to spend a lot of time understanding the demands of each position and each athlete. That's
right.
And once you know that game, and you know the player, and you also know how the player responds to the game, I think it's really, really important that you can look at, and it's the same thing within sports, or within, for example, a front row prop in rugby versus a fullback. Their demands are completely different. Their training is completely different. So although you know the game, you've got to know the position as well. And that's right. That's within team sports, but within individual sports, I think that.
Well, look at swimming, for example. Swimming. Yeah. You got your freestyle specialists, then you got your butterfly dudes, and then you got your backstrokers and breaststrokers, whatever. I mean, it's a completely different movement pattern again, isn't it? For the arms, how 100%. Your midsection has to work in through these strokes. And of course, then there's that element of legs as well, but which maybe in swimming is a bit less manifesting, but the range of motion that happens and the movement pattern, for example, between even something like breaststroke and freestyle.
Yeah, and I think there's literature out there for that, actually. So they were looking at the position of the upper limb and the C-spine in relation to core contraction work, and the EMG studies they were looking at. But say what you want about EMG, it's favoured, but again, reliability could be questioned. But they were looking at basically the activation methods of the trunk, and they found that it actually differs based on your upper limb position. So if your arm is out up here compared to down here, your core activation and the kind of the order in which they activate is completely different based on upper limb and C-spine position. So it's really interesting. And you're talking about kind of, stroke specific, so breaststroke compared to front crawl. You're going to get completely different activations of the core musculature and you're going to have a look at, you know, anti-rotation in a different way, and you're going to get all these different things. So again,
That's
it's
right.
knowing that specificity and specific demand for that athlete and their favored stroke, as it were. So it
Absolutely.
is quite interesting. It's really interesting to
So,
look at the individuals, you know.
and also, I mean, I suppose, you know, if you have athletes who are, you know, whether they're elite or amateur or even professional, you know, the distinction is there, of course, then when you start looking into the workload and or the loading patterns as it goes.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you may have a freestyler swimmer, you know, who's either a professional swimmer or an amateur, and they will have very different presentations again, purely from the fact that
100%.
one guy swims 8 hours a day and the other guy swims 2 hours a week.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what we kind of look at in clinic with these people, with obviously these athletes and the weekend warriors, as it were. They often ask, "Oh, well, why is this happening?" And you're like, "Well, you know, it's got to be something that you're doing a lot of." I don't know, because I don't follow you around every day. However, it's something that you're doing a lot of that is going to be having a detrimental effect, and you need to kind of counter that detrimental activity with something that's productive.
That's right.
And that's what's really, like, all these weekend warriors, they want to train like elite athletes as well.
Absolutely.
But they forget that you need to recover like an elite
That's
athlete.
right.
And recovery is just as important as the training element of it.
Oh, absolutely. It's the fourth discipline in triathlon as it goes, you know.
Yeah, and you
Which is
need
beautifully
to recover well.
exemplified by I read Chrissy Wellington's book a few years ago, and obviously Chrissy was or is very well known, a person who is 4-time Hawaii Ironman champion, you know, unbeaten, I believe, still in Ironman distance triathlon in ladies. But then the point is, you know, she was going through kind of what you were talking about, the recovery and recovering like the pros, and apparently she was very bad at that early on.
Yeah,
she could not bring herself to just sit on the sofa for a day watching Netflix. I mean,
hard life, isn't it? It's a hard life.
Goodness me, you know.
Yeah.
But then again, you know, you have your weekend warriors, like you call them, you know, very apt term, by the way, I have to say. But I mean, come on, us weekend warriors, you know, we got lives, right? You know, we got families, absolutely. We got jobs, we got to go to a supermarket, we got to cut
you've got other demands.
You know, exactly. We got a lot of things. Whereas you got your pro athletes, you know, who are, their job is to be an athlete. And they've got somebody to do the supermarket shopping and walk the dog and, you know, on their recovery days and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, again, puts a completely different demand, a different slant on the situation.
100%. Then it's a lot easier for elite athletes to get that recovery in. But it's still essential. And I think that, you know, certainly from an overload and from a tendon perspective, because I'm kind of looking at tendinopathy a lot recently. But from a tendon perspective, we know that from a collagen aspect of tendons, collagen doesn't really efficiently restore until around about 72 hours post-run. So realistically, if you are, they did look at this in 3-hour runs. So it's a long run. I'm not saying that this would be the same if you were doing like 20 minutes, half hour. But you've got an athlete that goes out and does a 3-hour run. So these are like your ultra marathons and your marathon athletes. When you look at training, very rarely would they ever run that distance. But still, 3-hour run, it would take you 72 hours to get a complete restoration of your collagen and protein into that tendon. So actually, you don't achieve a net synthesis in collagen until around about 72, well, I think it's 36 to 72 hours, which is so interesting when you look at overload. So those athletes that are just not resting, they are not even getting the collagen back up to a normal standard.
So just to kind of clarify that, with this recovery, you mean 72 hours of what? Lying on your back watching Netflix?
Well, no, this is the thing, is there's just no other running elements to it. And that's the importance as well, though, of looking at a varied training program. And that's where, you know, if you just run, and this is what we see a lot of athletes doing now, because running, particularly in this area, we've got the running group here, the Harriers, Talbot Harriers, has grown massively. And we are seeing now more and more people who are doing couch to 5Ks, and they just want to get to that 5K goal.
Oh yeah,
But
same in my area.
yeah, and
It's
they
a
run
great
in and they run
incentive,
it.
by the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm not no way would I ever say that is a negative thing to do. It's just that it needs to be done properly, and thank God the couch to 5K does actually encourage rest days.
That's right.
But there's a lot of people who think, oh, I can go out for another run today, even though my plan's not telling me to do so. I feel okay. But
yeah, feel good, easy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's just a little half hour, but it does actually have a detrimental effect because you're not entirely recovering. Although,
That's right.
you can walk around, you can do what you need to do, but it's a completely different demand.
That's right.
It's really interesting though. You do look at whereas it is drilled into, elite athletes are like, no, you sit in the house, you do what you need to do. Like you just get your chef to cook you food today.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a little bit different, but the same principle applies, is that there needs to be a rest day, doesn't it? And it's just really
absolutely.
interesting. I love the tendinopathy stuff. It's kind of where I've been focusing a lot of my research at the moment. So it's a really, really interesting one to talk about, and maybe we'll talk about that in another one of those.
I sense that there is a specific episode where we can let you loose on this whole tendinopathy thing. I'll just put the kettle on and sit here and listen. You can tell me, educate me about tendinopathies for like an hour.
There's so much to say. No, it's good. I mean, if you are interested, with what I will say with that is Peter Maliara stuff and Jill Cook. They the gods of tendinopathy, and they just,
now that's a title, isn't it?
They are gods.
God of tendinopathy.
Gods. What a title. They are gods. I'm literally, all of their work is the basis of my knowledge, really. So if those that are watching this and do want to learn a little bit more about tendinopathy, I think Pete and Jill, look at their literature. It's superb. But yeah, I think, from a perspective of you, I know you wanted to do a little bit more about breathing and things like that as well in the future talks. So you can touch on that if you going forward as well, which would be amazing.
I think that'd be a cool little thing. There's a lot of little things that not many people know about, but we can actually give a really tangible performance enhancement and recovery enhancement, in something that cost you nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key.
And these are the kind of like the basic things that a lot of people have just forgotten, or us people as collective have forgotten.
Yes, yeah. I think sometimes we're so focused on trying to do the right thing for the athlete that sometimes we overlook the blindingly obvious, which is, and again, sometimes you delve too deep, and that's very, very possible. Is that you're looking at the little minute movement patterns, and
you get too fancy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand how that lure is just, it's real, and it's there, it's easy 100%. To get suckered into really knowing a hell of a lot, like about very little.
Yeah, I've been there with patients in certain cases, because I'm fortunate that I'm actually an MSK sonographer as well, so I do ultrasound, and I'm very fortunate in the extent that we can obviously assess the quality of a tendon and ligament and whatever else, which is lovely. But as a go-to tool, we've got these. Like, this is what we were trained for, and
Absolutely.
It's so easy just for me to go, let me just get the probe and pop it on, when actually this is unnecessary often. So yeah, you do overcomplicate it, and I've been guilty of that in clinic on occasions where I've been kind of looking at a patient and delving into the, are you gripping your toes as you squat, and it's just, actually I should be like, well, okay, well, let's look at the low back, because that's where your pain is, and then diverge and go from there. Whereas do you know what I mean? It's so simple to...
Yeah, I mean, you look at a person as a person, and a whole person, rather than an isolated knee or an isolated low back, like you brought up. There's that conundrum. Like, of course, the patient will be totally focused on where their pain is, I mean, they can't understand why you start looking at their feet when they're doing a squat.
Yep.
You know, it's obviously just a foot, right? It just sits at the bottom of a leg and it kind of does nothing. It's just not important. But you know what? Actually, for people like you and me, you know, I always look at patients from ground up. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah,
you know, it's a logical thing.
I'm exactly the same.
So I always start my analysis from looking at how they stand, how they walk. You know, what are their feet actually doing? You know, if somebody has this weird claw of a foot, you know, it's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? You know, whereas the other one is flat as a pancake. So all of a sudden you got a massive discrepancy there, which starts.
But I'm going to be devil's advocate to that, and I'm going to go. Which one's the normal one?
Either.
It's yes. Okay, that's good answer. That's what I was hoping for there.
Sorry, did I just ruin the joke? Did I?
No. But that's the key thing, is that you've got to know, like, what is normal and what isn't, and actually, both could be normal for that individual.
In that current time.
Yes, and it's a demand. So it's normally an adaptation. It's an adaptation to the demand that they're placing on it. And if you look at an injury, that's all an injury is. It's a failed ability to reach the demand that you're placing on your body. That's
right. Which then obviously, as there are, for example, something very simple like a cuboid dysfunction. You know, a cuboid, obviously, if somebody doesn't know what cuboid is, it's one of the small bones, sits at the base of the fifth metatarsal bone in the foot, on the outside of the foot. Now, you and me both know, very easy to injure, a real bugger for people to spot, because most people don't ever even look at it. But actually can be real transformational when it comes to the foot mechanics, ankle mechanics, and hence the whole unit that we know as a human being. But you know, something like a cuboid problem, you know, when people have that restriction in the midfoot that starts affecting through the heel and then the talus, next thing you know, you got tendinopathies. So you got plantar fasciitis coming, you know, out of your ears. People are complaining about that. You got Achilles tendon problems. You know a lot more than I do about that kind of stuff. But I mean, to me, that's just so logical. And
absolutely. There's a chain, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And again, it comes right back to the beginning of chicken and the egg. Yeah. And it's causation. Yeah. And
I mean, I'm sure you've had this discussion with people as well in clinic, you know, and your athletes when they go.
Treat them both though.
But you know, you've had this discussion where you know, you look at a person and they come in and they say, "Oh, I have sciatica. You know, it's running down the back of my left leg into my foot. You know, I did my back in." And you go, "Yeah, it's your foot." And I go, "What?"
Yeah, 100%.
You know, but I have never injured my foot. And you go, "Well, actually, you know, if you look at the evidence, look at what your body is telling us. You know, how you walk, how you stand, how you do a heel raise test, you know, are you able to stand on one leg? All these different things. They tell me as a chiropractor that, yes, you have injured your foot."
But Dr. Google wouldn't say that.
No. But see, that's the problem, isn't it?
That's the problem that we have now.
It's not selling. There's no clicks in that. Nobody's going to die from that.
Yeah.
It's not dramatic enough. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then again, you know, how do you tell this patient that when they jumped off a swing set as a 4-year-old, as a 5-year-old, and twisted their foot and limped for a day and totally forgot about it, how are you going to tell this person who is 35 and now laid up because from his marathon training because of something that happened 30 years ago? How are they going to
it's difficult. It's difficult, isn't it? It's really difficult one. I think they've got to just, and this is the key to building trust as well. They've got to trust you and trust your plan. And I think that thankfully most athletes certainly, well, I say thankfully, but certainly in our area, a lot of athletes would have gone down other avenues before they come to see us.
Yeah.
And I think that often it's one of those ones where it's like, I'll give anything a go at this point. And,
last ditch effort, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had a case recently actually where there's been a young girl who's been presenting with low back pain for 5 years. I think she was in pain for, and I was looking at her and I said, we went to the initial consultation and it's like, oh, so what's been going on? What have you been doing? Oh, well, I've seen 5 other chiropractors and I've had no benefit. And so, okay, right. So what have they been doing? This is what they've been doing. Okay, fine. So I said, do you know what I'm not going to do? That. Like, we're not going to do the same because it's obviously not working for you. So if we need to look at you in a completely different way. And I had her, and I was literally, I didn't charge her. I felt as though it was one of those ones where it's like, this is something that we need to work on together. You trust me, I trust you, we'll work through this. So it's like, you need to put trust in me that what I'm telling you is going to be beneficial, but I need to trust you that you're going to go away and do your exercise and your rehab. And we saw her 3 weeks later with a little bit of, obviously I'd seen her in between, but saw her 3 weeks later for a review, and she was like, right, let's do your movements. And I had her doing hip hinges, had her doing her bird dogs, her dead bugs, and just trying to get her core activation. So little simple things where you try and, you know, flatten your back and do your wall angels and just assess that movement again after doing 3 weeks of movement-based exercises, basically. So the initial hip hinge process for a squat and the deadlifts, and then we'll eventually get that loaded. 3 weeks later, 80% reduction in pain. And you're like,
nice.
That amazing, right? With absolutely very little manual therapy. And then the manual therapy was adjunct then at that point, once we were able to get her moving a little bit better. Because what I think people were missing was that, all right, yeah, you need to get people tolerant to load, but we also need to get them moving differently and assess that movement pattern. And that's what people had missed with her. So once we stripped it right back, that really improved her symptoms. And that was one of the key ones where I was like, that's amazing. Like, this is why I do what I do. As well as those, you know, elite athletes, it can make such a big difference with the day-to-day patient as well. And she wasn't even an athlete. She was just someone who wanted to get back into training.
She was a normal person, in other words.
A non-athlete folk.
Not somebody with lots wrong with their head, you know.
yeah, absolutely. But, she was.
But you know what? It's one of those funny things. I've been thinking about this for a long time, you know, and how the human brain actually is a pretty amazing thing in many different respects. But I mean, probably the most amazing thing that comes to me is the fact that it's designed to heal the body to 100%.
Yeah.
Right? If you let it.
Yeah.
And therein lies the conundrum, you know, when people, you know, when they have an injury of some description, they ignore it, they just take painkillers, and they just become less and less functional, less and less able to do things. And they think that's normal, you know, because we're getting on with age a bit, you know, I'm like 25 now, so I shouldn't be able to do certain things. But actually, you know what? No, that's rubbish, right? But
it's not the best attitude in the world, is it? Because
no, but a lot of people unfortunately fall into that.
It's that acceptance of, oh, well, you know, I'm coming, like, exactly as you said, I'm coming up to 20s, so I'm in my mid-20s now. I used to be able to touch my toes, but that's long gone. And and it shouldn't be. It's not necessarily that it needs to be.
No, not at all. And therein lies the conundrum. You know, when you normalize that neurological feedback, when you start opening those channels up, which obviously you can do via chiropractic adjustments, SMT, you can do it by myofascial techniques, you can do it by just massage, you know, you can do it through stretching, you can do it through facilitating muscles, getting them moving more strongly, contracting. You can do it via balance exercises or whatever it may be.
Yep.
Any kind of movement that the body is, should we say it, is not willing to do. You know, it's not willing to do it for a reason. But if you can convince the brain that actually it's okay, you just shatter those illusions that actually produce a lot of the pain and discomfort and therefore that disability for patients.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you kind of mentioned there about opening up those neurological channels, but also the reinforcement of those neurological channels is really important as well. So, you know, it's like you get these patients where adjustments just aren't sticking and the pain is just coming back and coming back.
That's right.
And you could argue that maybe we're not addressing the right area. Firstly, you could argue that, so maybe you need to reassess and look at that. But also, maybe what's the patient doing that isn't reinforcing that? And I think that's the key thing, is that opening up those channels is one thing, but getting reinforcement of those channels is another. And that's where I think, that reinforcement could be due to your exercise or your movements and your variety of movements, as we've already discussed. But again, getting the manipulations to hold, as it were, or the adjustments to hold.
See, I think, a good way of kind of explaining that as well is about the difference between recovery time and healing time.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Like a lot of people, again, like my patients, same as everybody else's, I suppose, as soon as they feel better, they think they're healed. They think they're fine.
Yeah.
Like, if you get a miracle cure first treatment, they feel miles better. They think, right, I'm good, but actually, you know what? Not really, So that's your recovery is done. So you recovered from that, whatever injury you may have had, but it doesn't mean that you're healed. It doesn't mean that the injury doesn't come back in 2 days' time.
It's from that physiological perspective, isn't it? You're looking at this from, is it a chemical injury? Is it a chemical response that's ongoing? Or, is it an inflammatory response, essentially? Which is going to have a prolonged period of healing, because you need that inflammatory process to die down. And as long as you get that patient and that athlete moving better, they will feel better. And then it's reinforcing that movement then. And I think it's that, again, not using pain as a limitation too much. Obviously, pain is okay within an extent. It's, if you work up until a 3 out of 10, that's my rule, 3 out of 10 pain. If you can work through that, absolutely fine. Or work up to that. But anything above kind of 4s, 5s, you possibly a little bit more detrimental. Again, there's no literature to support that. That's just kind of the rule that I use in clinic.
Well, I think that's valid. It's practitioner. It's your experience. It's something you learned that works well. So totally legit in my books.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll take that.
We can call it the Dan method. That's cool, man.
3 out of 10, and just call it 3 out of 10.
See, now what you got to do is do a couple of double-blinded RCTs on that, and you'd be fine. You'd be flying.
Yeah, we can get that going. We'll get that going.
Oh, easy, right?
Ethics should be fine.
Ethics, isn't it?
Yeah, who needs that? And it's so when you look at your athletes, and again, you work in a variety of sports, would you say that the athletic population differ to a normal population in your experience?
Well, yes and no.
On the spot, no.
Yes and no. It's like you said, that the rugby players are all broken, and which they kind of are. Yeah. And at the same time, where's the break? Is the break in the head, or is it the break in the body? It's kind of, sliding concept. But most of the athletic population, they're a bit motivated. They want to pursue something that is that I suppose your non-athletic normal population, they're not interested in. So therein lies that abnormality. But which group do I prefer treating? Yeah, give me athletes any day.
Yeah.
Because chances are that they will stick with their rehab program. Chances are, because they're a bit motivated, they'll actually ask you better questions. So they're interested, right? They have a bit of a vested interest in the outcome. They want to feel better. They want to be able to engage those muscles better, so they can run faster, or hit the golf ball further, or whatever it may be, but they are, it is a different ball game, isn't it? Whereas, you got your old 100%. Doris coming in the clinic saying, "Oh, I got back pain." Doris is not an athlete, by the way. Nothing against Doris, but Doris is not an athlete. But so Doris comes in with a back pain, and you go, "So Doris, why are you here? What do you want? What's your desired outcome?" Yeah. So you go, "I want to feel a bit better." Really? What does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I like a clearly defined goal personally.
Structure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I understand what we're doing. I understand what we're chasing. We both understand, okay, so what does it take for you to now achieve what you want to achieve? And how can I help you as a chiropractor to achieve it? Whereas Doris is, I want to feel a little bit better. Okay, I'll just prod on a trigger point for a minute. There you go. Is that better? That's a bit better. Yeah. But actually, if somebody comes in and says, right, I want to be able to run a marathon under 2:30.
Yeah.
We're currently sitting at 2:45. Right now we're in business.
Yeah. I like those patients too.
Yeah, because they're so much more willing to just put in the effort, and it makes both of us look good, us and them.
Yeah, I like a little bit of structure, which is kind of actually why being off with this COVID-19 at the moment is killing me. There's just a lack of normality, but I like structures from a patient perspective. I think that I like goals, and I will always try and create a goal with an athlete, or even if they don't have one. And again, it comes to that SMART goal setting, doesn't it? Then specific, measurable, achievable, time, or kind of repeatable and time phased. So the SMART goal setting is always one that we kind of go through with athletes. I don't know if you do the same.
Absolutely.
So that is, but again, you could argue that there's room for that in normal population as well. So
absolutely, and I think that's a conversation we should have with probably every patient we see. What is your sort of dream thing? What do you want to achieve in your life? And hence, be that empowering presence in their life. Everybody's so quick to bash people who have dreams and ambitions, and you're too old, or you shouldn't do that at your age, or whatever it may be. It's that kind of thing. But when somebody comes along and says, here, why don't we achieve this? I have a perfect example of this one. I have a perfect example. So we call this guy, we'll call him John, right? So John he's in his mid 60s, definitely not an athlete. So comes into clinic, a bit of sciatic pain, this and that. And I treat him a few times and he's getting better, but he's always a bit grumpy. Just sort of, I can't put my finger on it. So anyways, one day I just asked John, John, what's the biggest regret in your life? Just blurted out of my mouth. I don't even know why I said it, but I just, it just came out. And so he kind of looked at me funny for a second. And I thought, okay, here we go. He's going to really give me a piece of his mind.
I'm in this room.
But actually, you know what? Then he thought about it for a second and he said, actually, my biggest regret is that I never took my kids skiing. So I'm thinking, okay, cool. We can work with that. So, he used to go skiing with his wife when they're younger and that, and then had all sorts of things happen. So couldn't take his kids skiing. So we had a bit of a chat about that and this and that. And then as I was kind of saying bye to him on that treatment visit, I said, right, you know what to do. That was my parting shot as he was walking out of the door. And so he comes back 2 weeks later and he's like burst through the door, literally like, ta-da, I'm here.
Superman,
yeah. And he's got the biggest grin on his face. And I'm thinking, okay, are you John or who are you? What happened?
What have you done with John?
Yeah, exactly right. And oh, hello, Teddy. So he then he says, I did it. I'm like, okay, what did you do? He said, I booked a skiing holiday, so I'm taking the kids, the wife, the grandkids, the dogs, whatever. We're all going skiing in 5 months' time. And then he says, I need to get in shape.
5 months. Let's go.
And the point is, he had a brand new lease to his life. He completely changed, literally. I think it was that one question I just happened to ask him. I don't even know where it came from, but just asked, what's the biggest regret in your life? And all of a sudden he just goes, right, off we go. We're skiing.
It opens up channels, doesn't it? And you know a little bit more about that individual. You know a little bit more about what their desires are. I think what I normally do is I'd be like, is there things that you used to do that you can no longer do? And then, right, let's start with that. Let's see where you want to be and what you want to be achieving. But yeah, I think there's always merit into because that way at least you find out what their interests are as well.
That's right.
And it's essential. And again, these athletes, they'll have goals, desires, and they're going to want to achieve them as quickly as possible.
Of course.
So yeah.
And that's where I suppose, you know, the true beauty of sports chiropractic really lies in, is that of course we have freedom that maybe the sports medical people don't necessarily have. We're able to kind of take from all these different disciplines, you know, like I know you're into your shockwave and those kind of things, and which is great, and obviously your tendinopathies and this and that, you know, which is cool stuff. And so we can kind of utilize all these different things for a very well-rounded approach. You know, obviously what kind of makes sense to you can use, and it's all fair game. And that I think is a great wealth for sports chiropractors.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, when you look at what we have in certainly around the world and in the UK, is we've got a really, really good unit of professionals that have expertise in a variety of fields. And we actually have a really good network to call upon with FICS as well, you know. So I think that the more certainly encouraged to speak amongst that network, and get, you know, the more you discuss, the more that you can take from it. And hopefully this is what, you know, these webinars will introduce, is that, you know, it's a discussion point and we can get guests on, and we can get guests on, and we can speak, you know, to a variety of people who have got a wealth of experience in different fields, and hopefully that can then provide and add to that rounded and well-rounded approach that we aim to achieve. So these should be fun and exciting going forward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking, like you said, you know, so we'll start running these little chats, this little sports chiro chats, you know, and invite our special friends, special guests who are our friends with special skills. Let's be explicit about that. And you know, for whoever is watching, of course, students, you know, older chiros, you know, who are established and may find the situation a bit tricky and even scary, you know, because of drop of income and all of that kind of thing. You know, hopefully this will be a way of a bit of a pressure valve, maybe injection of sanity into our lives.
Yeah, just you know, a little bit of a discussion for them, isn't it? You know, a little bit of a distraction as well.
Yeah, precisely. Precisely. And also, I mean, a little cheeky business plug at this point, but yeah, no, FICS are now doing the reduced fee for the head injury module to get get your qualifications in order. So obviously, if people want to be involved with FICS games, now it's mandatory to have the ICSC qualification, of which the head injury module, you have to have that added on to your ICCSP. That was the old way of doing it. So, and even in America, it's the CCSP, I believe, is their equivalent. So the head injury module has been reduced. It's about $100, and it's a real bargain. So yeah, get that sorted ASAP.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's, you know, it's essential to get that in, particularly with the way that things are in sport at the moment, and concussion and neck injuries, and
that's right.
Obviously it comes in with your trauma training anyway, but the way that sport is going with the neck and the head injury stuff is, you know, it's important to learn about that.
Absolutely.
But have you seen the film Concussion, by the way?
Do you know, I don't think I have.
Oh, you've got to get on that.
Yeah, a couple of minutes, darling. We're almost done. Sorry, my little daughter needs the computer for something, so I think we're going to have to call it a day.
We won't be long anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But definitely, if you get a chance, have a little watch of Concussion. I think that a lot of people are obviously going to be free over the next couple of days, weeks.
Definitely, yeah. Well, I'll make sure I'll watch that myself as well.
It's around the Discovery CTE.
Cool.
Which is really, really good, and it's a little bit of a background of how it was discovered in the NFL. So well worth a film, well worth a watch of that film. I don't know, obviously it's film, so it's going to be a little bit dramatized.
Of course.
And how, but you know, the true events are never that interesting.
Yeah.
But well worth a watch if you're interested in that, you know, and obviously that's the way that things are going, is looking at action. I think they're even looking at rule changes in rugby now, so that they're looking at tackles below the waist only, which is going to be extremely difficult, I think.
Wow.
So they are
that's
looking
going to be
at
tricky to implement.
Yeah. There was discussions of that a few months ago. Again, I have no idea if that's going to come to light, but maybe there was rumours of that in the press more than anything. That in any official capacity, I have to say that. But yeah, they're certainly trying to combat it in the best way that we can. So it'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting, and you know what we'll do is let's get together again over the next couple of days. We'll record another episode of the Sports Chiro Chat, or maybe we'll come up with a better name.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do.
We need to come up with a logo as well. You know, something within the limits of good taste, but a little bit cheeky, perhaps. You know,
we'll come up with something, I'm sure.
We'll maybe I'll ask my daughter to my kids to design something. I think that'd be good.
Yeah, I like that.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, hey, listen. I think we're running up pretty much to the wire here in terms of time. So I'm gonna have to call it a day, my friend. But cool. I'll look forward to our next little chat in a day or two.
Awesome, mate. I'll catch you soon.
All right. Cheers, buddy.
Ta-ra, mate.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.